Hey YouTube, JP Dillon. This is going to be part 3 of the 13-inch General Electric. And I've been over this board fairly heavily. I pulled many components. I've ohmed out the socket here that the NTE 1545 is in, which is good. All those ohm out. There's no oxidation on the socket. I've also ohmed out all of the coils here, including the final two, which are perfectly fine. I pulled and checked C120 through C122. And then C124 and C125, they're okay. These guys are okay here. And then this guy here was pulled and tested too. No leakage, no shorts. They're okay. Now, people have been mentioning about C140, pertinent to a post on Video Karma about it being shorted. And so I pulled the little bugger out. It's a 1 microfarad, 50 volt. Why it's labeled as 1K16, I'm not sure, but if we take our old volt ohm meter, and I think I was getting deflection as early as the R times 100 scale. Let me just get a minute to get my probes on it. And I'm just going to use alligator clips because it works the best here. If we clip on our probe and look at our ohm meter, that's on the R times 100 scale. And even if we go back down to R times 1 scale, we get the tiniest little bit of deflection. Not much, but definitely on the R times 100 we've got uber leakage there. So that is going to screw with the AGC and tuner voltages. That's probably going to pull them down. If we go to R times 1, or 1K rather, what is that, about a 25K resistor. Actually, no, it's more like a 40K resistor, but depending on what voltage you run through it. This runs about, I believe, 10 volts through it, and this is 22 volts, and that shows a short. So this capacitor is most decidedly defective. The next thing that we want to check is Q200, which is the video amp transistor. And that has to be good too, otherwise that's going to keep our video from passing in. I don't think it'll screw with the sound though, so in circuit the junctions test okay. I haven't pulled it out and checked for gain yet, but I suspect that that's probably not the issue. I'll test it just to be sure, but I really don't think so. Really, I'm more concerned with getting that shorted C140 replaced and the board back into the set and seeing if that's the magical fix. I'm hoping so, because I'm not sure where much else to go from here. If you've watched the previous videos, we've substituted another tuner, which didn't do a thing. We did find strange voltages on the IC, some of which have been resolved by replacing it, and I do have a very faint picture with no sync. So there was some improvement, but not enough. And then somebody else brought up that C140 capacitor that likes to short in the AGC tuner line. So given the fact that that is in fact defective, and we should not be getting any kind of resistance across it, then definitely got to change that one out. Ironically, I should have paid attention to this a little bit better, because the manufacturer of this is Sanyo. And these generation of Sanyo caps, which I see daily in the audio gear that I work on, are almost all bad. So I should have been like, hey, maybe we should just pull and check this one on a whim. There's also this guy down in here, which may also be bad, which is another blue Sanyo cap. I think I'll pull and replace that too. And then you've got others here which are made by, definitely not this. This one's like a CE something or other. And then you've got other ones over here that aren't the Sanyos. But anyway, I'm going to replace those two blue Sanyo caps, and then we'll pop this thing back in there, and with any luck, maybe it'll actually fix it. Alright, so I've got the board loosely in there again, and we're going to see if we get snow this time. I got no sound. Interesting. No sound, but I got, hooray, I have snow. That's awesome. I wonder why there's no volume now. Damn it. Let's see, did I miss something here? Oh yeah, stupid me. I got the speaker hooked up on the wrong pin. I'm missing a pin, but that's okay. The good news is, it's got a picture. Even if it's snow, it's got a picture. So now what I'm going to do is put the shields back on and put all the knobs back on and fully reassemble the board. And then we can work on actually doing all the setup adjustments. So, awesome sauce. That's what's next. Okie dokie, so I've got the shields back on it. Top one just kind of snaps in place. The bottom one you do have to solder onto the board. But that's what the soldering gun's for. So I got that all back in place. Now I just need to attach the knob extensions there for the front panel controls. Put it all back in, and then we'll work on the rest of the setups. Alright, so we've got it back together, and we have snow on the picture. But when we turn on the generator, we've got like weak signal, no sync, no fine tuning either. I don't think there's an AFC switch back here. Oh, there we go. Let's turn the AFT off. That's kind of ugly. And fine tuning's not doing much. I can tune the audio carrier for channel 6 kind of, sorta. Interesting. I have color there on channel 3. Almost like the fine tuning isn't working. Very interesting. So we're making progress, but we need to find out why why that isn't working. Our fine tuning isn't working. There's probably a little piece of linkage that's busted off. And then we've got all this crummy distortion. Yet I have color bars there when it's detuned on channel 3. It's kind of weird. And it will lock in there even on a weak signal. So, making progress, but that's odd. And if I switch on the EFT again, still not quite right. And I don't think there's a way to change this over to channel 3 easily. It's on 4 right now. Maybe I'll see if I can try a different signal source. And it looks like there's hum or something there because it goes from light to dark. But we're making progress. I wonder why the tuner doesn't tune at all. Oh, that's awesome. That just all came apart. That number wheel and all that stuff. Okay. That's supposed to lock into a pin on that guy there, I guess. Alright, let's put that back to where we had it. That tuner might have to come out because right now fine tuning doesn't seem like it's attached to anything. Let's try a different signal source. Alright, so I've got the DTV box hooked up, the primitive antenna. Let's see if I can get this to do something. Hang on here. Okay, no signal. Yeah, it looks horribly detuned. Like the fine tuning is super wrong. And if you crank the color up, you can see it's definitely detuned. It's all screwed up here and there's colored snow. So we need to get the tuner out of here. The tuner's what's holding us back, because right now there's no fine tuning ability at all. So that's what needs to happen next. Let's get the tuner out of there. Alright, so I can't begin to express the displeasure in trying to get this assembly apart. What a nightmare. There's like no room to work at all. And it's like 26 screws to get this subframe out with the power supply and stuff. Here's the tuner. And it's kind of like I thought. The little plastic doohickey that's responsible for interfacing with the fine tuning isn't there anymore. It's not connecting to anything. This whole plastic assembly is just broken. And that may have been a function of my aggression in cleaning it, but I doubt it. Also, it doesn't appear to connect to anything inside. Let me take the cover off real quick. Alright, so anyway, the way that this works is there's always spring tension pulling this down, so that when you push this in, it locks in with this gear, this reduction gear, which then pulls down on this assembly, which then interfaces with the little fine-tuning thingamajiggas inside there. And so that's not working at all. And the way that this machine is laid out, it's almost impossible to tune these manually while I have the thing apart. So I need to find a way to fix this, even if it's a temporary solution, just so that I can fine-tune the picture and get this thing so that it receives a good clear signal. Because I think once we do that, the set should produce a pretty good picture, but right now it's just detuned. And there's no signs that the gear teeth there are stripped off. So I think it was just a function of breakage, because there's something up here that looks like it was broken or messed up anyways. So let me see if I can find a solution for that, so that we can get the fine-tuning operable on this tuner again. Then very likely we can dial in a good picture. Alright, I think what I'm going to end up doing, since this is largely broken, there's no practical way to make the original mechanism work. So I'm going to secure this plastic slide in the position that it would contact the fine-tuning inside, and epoxy it to the tuner, front of the tuner housing, so that all I have to do is just push on this and it will turn the little gears inside. It's true that if the tuner rotates, it does change the fine-tuning a little bit, because obviously the drum is rotating. It's hard to see there because I'm trying to hold this still and rotate the tuner, but the drum rotates and it does affect the fine-tuning. Hang on a second. Yeah, it does affect the fine-tuning somewhat when you rotate the drum, but this is really only going to be on channel 3 or 4 anyways, so I'm not really too concerned about that. I'm just going to mix up some epoxy real quick, like some JB Weld, 5-minute JB Weld, and just attach that to the position that it's in now, so that it just tunes, and then we'll be able to dial it in from there. But I don't really see any other way of doing it, just because there's too much of this that's broken. There are tabs that are supposed to secure a spring, a tension spring that keeps it against the tuner and lifts it up as you're tuning between channels, and all of that plastic is just dead. So I'm just going to epoxy it in this position. I'll put a little wedge in here to keep it in place while it dries, and then we'll double check it and then put it back together. Alright, so here it is. It's all got the epoxy setting in there so that the slide won't move no more. My Ghetto Fabulous clamp here. I've got a clamp on a pair of hemostats to hold it together while it dries. and then that should make it so that we can fine tune it, and then it'll be putting it back together and seeing if we can actually get this thing going. We're making progress. It's just, I hate old plastics. Old plastics are just ugh. And then the tuner pad here is disintegrating, which was mentioned in one of the other videos. We should probably just take that out of here before all the crap gets into the tuner, which will definitely complicate things. And I definitely got to put all this mess back together. So, fun with that. So when the epoxy dries, we'll double check that it works and then reassemble it. Alright, so here it is, all JB welded to the body here. I noticed that this little green intermediate gear was coming off, so I took some old component lead and just fused it into the plastic and made that little keeper there, so that when I turn the damn thing, that gear doesn't want to come off, and I can still rotate it. And as you can see, the bar keeps it there. And then when I rotate this, you can see that the little gears turn the fine-tuning thingamajigas inside, and freewheeling doesn't turn it, so I have to push this in and all that sort of thing. So in theory, that will work. And when I rotate the main tuner, it does bump the fine-tuning, so you will have to readjust it. But it really doesn't matter much, because you're only either going to be on channel 3 or 4 with an RF modulator, so who cares? But in theory, that should fix the fine-tuning problem with the tuner. We'll put it all back together, and then we'll see if we can get a real picture on it and finish the setups. Alright, so now that our tuner is all back together, let's see if we have an ability to fine-tune our set now. Okay, there we go. That seems to be getting worse. Back up a little. Do I have color at all? I do. Okay, that's good. Turn the contrast down a little bit. We do have a bit of a fringe. Let's see if turning the EFC on and off fixes that. Probably not, now that I'm defeating it. Okay. So if we go to an all rainbow, oh wow, that's trippy. I wonder if the batteries in this are just getting tired because the patterns aren't consistent anymore. Or maybe there's something else going wrong. Let's go the other way here. I think we might switch back to the DTV box again. Like that looks normal there. But when I go to another pattern, like there's tearing at the top there. Look at how skewed the crosshatch is up at the top. The dots off center. Something ain't right there. Got plenty of brightness though. Plenty of contrast. And I do have fine tuning now, so that's good. But surprisingly, my color rainbow looks awesome. But yet if I go to another pattern here, like look at the tearing there at the top. Let's see. Yeah, something ain't right there. And how it's skewing it to the side and how it's all unstable. Alright, well let's go back to the DTV box and see what happens there. So with the DTV box we've got a more stable picture, but there's a lot of noise in the picture and the video response isn't all that good. And we get a lot of sync breakup, like there's a weak IF signal. So I'm wondering if that chip that I put in there isn't quite good enough for the job. So what I'm going to do is try to put the original chip back in there and see if we get any improvements, because right now, as you can see, it's working, but the colors are kind of flimsy and the detail is kind of smeared and ugly looking. And it's really sensitive at RF input. If I tweak the RF AGC, it just totally breaks up. So I'm going to swap the chips out again. Maybe the old chip wasn't bad and it was just being masked by that defective capacitor. It's hard to tell. So let's do that. Alright, out with the new, in with the old. We put the original IC back in. And we're going to button it up now and see if that changes our IF response at all. It might just be that this isn't quite the right thing for the application, but we'll certainly find out in a moment. Alright, so with the original IC, it's definitely an improvement. I've got pretty sharp response. The contrast is better. It's not so smeared. The color looks way better. It's definitely the NTE device, although it had the same pin out, it was close, but it didn't quite work the way that I wanted it to. It looks so much nicer now. Everything is sharp, so. And it doesn't seem to have that grittiness and that sensitivity to the loss of RF signal. Picture's a little off center. Let's see if I can tweak it a bit. Yeah. And then if I go back, it locks right in. So that's good. It doesn't have that tearing problem. I guess the next step will be to try it again with the signal generator, and if it's still wonky, then I have to check the batteries in that thing. Yeah, so with the signal generator now, everything is stable and happy. So that IFIC just wasn't quite right for the application, because now I've got decent brightness, contrast, and all that. And in the grand scheme of things, this really doesn't need a convergence adjustment. The convergence is like spot on, which is remarkable. Usually these need tweaking. I suppose I can reach back here and see if I can dial in the focus a little better, but really I don't think it needs much. Yeah, it's pretty good as is. I mean, the grayscale is perfect. It's got good contrast ratio. Let's look at our color bars again. It's hard to tell with the camera because it doesn't quite do it that way. Do it right. Color bars look really good. So I'm pretty happy with this one. Let's see if I can tweak the vertical size a bit and see where that's at. Hang on just a second here. So I got it sized up. There's a size and centering control in the back. Let's see here. Let's try another. So far, this looks really good. I think I'm going to leave it as is. So I think this one's done. It looks pretty decent. There's a little bit of width overscan, but I'm not going to try to mess with that. I've got my fine tuning back, and the IF is working correctly. It's got a nice sharp picture, pretty bright. CRT is in awesome shape. So really the lesson here is not to jump into something without looking at the surrounding support components. I mean, realistically, the IF IC was fine, but that AGC voltage was getting wonked out by that defective capacitor. So we changed the other blue Sanyo capacitor in there, which was C520, which did measure leaky a little bit. So and then resoldering the griplets and all that sort of thing. But the color on this looks great. It's nice and deep. It doesn't bleed. It's got a razor sharp picture now. So I'm really happy in how this one turned out. This one could have been a lot worse. But really I saved it because it's pretty looking. It is very nice looking. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching the series. When I have some time, I'll get back into that chroma color. Otherwise, this one's done. Thanks for watching.